I am digital illustrator Mike Meth.
I'm model and body painter Caitlin St. Angelo.
My name is Marc Scheff. I'm an artist, art director, and educator, and this is Artistic Awareness.
Well done. Welcome to episode 13 of the Artistic Awareness podcast. This is our season finale. We are a bi-weekly discussion of unspoken issues facing artists today. Our guest for this episode is Marc Scheff, a talented artist and art director whose work has been featured by the New York Times, The Economist, and Imagine Effects. Marc was also recently featured on the art blog Muddy Colors for his health-conscious article, The Art of Fitness. Our topic for this episode is piece of work. And Miss Caitlin St. Angelo, do us the honor of starting things off.
I'm going to get kicked off titles really soon if I keep coming up with stuff like that. So,
yeah, that one's straight too.
13. Marc, thank you for joining us. Definitely appreciate the time. So briefly tell us about yourself and how you got started.
I didn't get started. I guess I got started in art. The real beginning is actually pharmaceuticals. My father is a pediatrician. My introduction to drawing was going in with him on days to the office, and he'd sit me in his office, and obviously couldn't, hang out with me. He was at work, so he'd give me all the pads and pens and writing stuff that all of the pharmaceutical salesmen would leave at his office for him to use and remember them and order their stuff, and I would just draw all day on this stuff. That was really the beginning. I did do a lot of art in high school, but then I went to school for computer science. Thought that, who can make a living in art? That seems crazy, so I'll go do this other thing, make some money, take some classes. I ended up taking some classes and went, oh, but this is really great. So I ended up going back to art school and pursuing a career in art. And after
I'm sorry, where did you go to school for computer science?
Harvard.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Small school in Boston.
Never heard of it.
Yes, and I went to Academy of Art in San Francisco, which was great. And then, and then I sort of went out into the world not really knowing what to do. I don't know how Academy is now, but then, as with many art schools, it was very difficult to sort of figure out what to do after school. They taught you how to make art, and that was a big job for a lot of us, including me. And then afterwards, sort of like, well, how do I do this? And so I spent some number of years really sort of floating around doing actually work at game companies and using my computer skills to get me into different places, and it was great. I was the creative director at a startup and wore all kinds of hats, but in the end, I found a way to make it back to my love, which is illustration.
Awesome. So I want to get serious for a second here, and I want to ask you a question, which is, what would you say is your favorite Crayola crayon color from the box of 64, the one with the sharpener on the back?
Do I have to Google the names?
You don't have to.
I'm sure
if you don't remember, that says something about you.
Illegitimate as an artist.
I'm going to go with coconut mint.
Was that one?
If it's
Look it up.
not, it should be.
Caitlin, what would you say is your favorite?
Mine
For the
was
sake of getting back on topic here. No, I'm asking you, what is your favorite color, Caitlin?
Oh, my favorite color, my favorite Crayola color?
Yes.
It's Tickle Me Pink.
Okay, yeah. I did know that. Mine is, I believe, macaroni and cheese. Yeah. When we're done with the episode, Marc, I definitely recommend. I recommend you do some research.
I was always talking about blue.
You were what?
I mean, I would say if I had, it's so basic, but blue green. I've always had an affinity for the blue green color, and I still do in my work today. So that would probably very boring. I mean, I should pick cornflower or something. But blue green is really the color that I gravitate to and continue to.
We'll let it slide.
Now that we've covered the serious business, let's jump into our Q&A segment of the program here.
I want to hear. Before that, I know that Marc has some really cool projects going on right now, and I want to know more about what do you currently have going on? What are you involved in right now?
Oh my God. I mean, this could be the whole episode. My problem is that I take on too many projects. Because I make art, and I also do art direction and sort of production, and I also educate. So the projects that I have going on right now is On the education side, I'm building a curriculum for a foundations course with the school that I'm a part of, the Smart School, smarterartschool.com. It's an online mentorship-based model, and we're introducing a foundations course with me as the instructor. That it's really a figure drawing boot camp, and there's very specific assignments every week. Everyone's working out of the same book, but it's as my mentor Rebecca Gay, as she refers to this is your sit-ups and push-ups, and we're doing our drills every day, every week. And we've done it with a couple of students already, and now we're opening up a full course of it. And we've seen people go from, 0 to paid work with this kind of exercise. So we're really positive that if you put in the work on this kind of thing, it'll pay off. On the art direction side, I'm building a drawing, which is a product that is. The first thing we're doing is we're putting out a book. So we're working on this book called Make Art Work, and it's about the business side. As I said before, you graduate art school and they don't they don't teach you everything, and there's no career path, and you don't get hired somewhere and have like a boss who teaches you the ropes. You got to go figure it out. So we're sort of looking to bridge the gap a little bit, put out a guide that people can get a good overview of what they need to know and some of the information that they need to know, with links out to resources that have more information. If you're more interested in learning, about contracts or these various things, you can go to the book and sort of branch out from there. We have a website, drawnanddrafted.com, and we, as of actually today, we just put out our third boot camp cheat sheet that we post. Lauren posts these on Muddy Colors, my partner, and so we've got all 3 cheat sheets up there. There's lots of good information about how to get hired, how to get yourself found, how to write a contract. So that's a big project, because we're taking all of the stuff that I know from working not just as an illustrator, but as a freelancer in the world before, doing web design and coding and all that stuff, and kind of what you need to know to be a business, which, like it or not, all of us are if we're creatives.
Absolutely.
On the art side, I'm working on a book for Charles Bridge Publishing, which I can't talk exactly about, but I'm also working on a sequel to my children's book, which is slow going because I don't know, nobody cares. It's just me making it. So like, there's no deadline. It's like one of those that's like personal work always sort of takes a back seat. Right. But I've also got a bunch of personal work going on in the studio. I've got like 5 paintings up that I'm working on, exploring some new stuff. The great thing about having the education stuff and the art direction stuff is that a lot of my day-to-day is covered. So I don't work to go.
Okay.
Like I'd be a little more select. In some senses, I've graduated from some of the lower-paying jobs, unless the lower-paying job is, Star Wars, in which case I'll say yes. That's kind of an overview. Yeah.
Priorities.
It's a fine sacrifice. Okay. Well done. So why don't we launch into whatever your huge amounts of spare time.
Yeah. Oh wait, what do I do in my spare time? Oh God. There's a little bit of a lag, so I think the question was, what do I do in my spare time? And as I write about online, I'm a huge fitness something. I like reading about fitness a lot. I'm really interested in fitness. I have been since I was a kid, playing sports. And when I got into high school, I played soccer and lacrosse, and I wrestled. And the wrestling team, the guys who are really into wrestling are like kind of demented about this stuff, but it got me into thinking more deeply and kind of scientifically about how a lot of this stuff works. Why is it that this kind of exercise works, and this all this stuff. And it's funny, like 25 years later, the stuff that I'm doing now is essentially what we were doing in wrestling practice, these like high intensity workouts. So I read a lot about fitness, I read a lot of science. In fact, I read an interesting study yesterday about there is a scientific link between aerobic exercise and creativity, the parts of the brain that light up.
How does this size? I know the physical benefits, obviously, like working out is good for you and exercise is awesome, and if you sit in a chair all day because you're a freelancer, get your butt up and move. But like, what does it do for your work?
Well, not just that, but you
Um,
had also mentioned, in our pre-interview, how important your meditation regimen is. So, I guess what we want to know
yeah.
is how does all that stuff factor in and help you?
Well, yeah, I just started meditating maybe about a month ago. I used to live in California, and I did all kinds of personal growth work. I was part of a men's circle, and we met every week. And I went to retreats and all this stuff. But meditation was a part of that, and sort of come in and out of my life. And um, meditation, and I have a great meditation teacher actually, Adam Kutz. His website is intromeditation.com. He's rebooting it though. It looks like crap right now, he says. But he's a great teacher, right? And he explained, he sort of explained this to me in a way that made it really understand. There's essentially like these two big branches, and I think I even have this thing open right. Let me open it. I'm going to open it up so I don't screw this up.
Okay.
Because he'll watch this and be like, you got the tree wrong.
Oh my God, you jerk, Marc Scheff.
I know. So the way he talks about it, and I'll give you kind of like the brief version, is that
Right.
There's stuff that like we're really attached to. Like I really like the way that feels, so I kind of keep going back to it. And maybe it's not great for me, but I just really like it. Like smoking or drinking or any of those things. Like I just need one thing. And then there's like that's attachment. Then there's aversion, which is like I don't really want to do that conversation, so I go to one of these attachment things. That's a tough conversation I'm gonna have with somebody. That's a lot of work that I'm gonna have to do to jump in that thing. So I'm gonna go to Facebook or whatever it is. So this attachment aversion thing kind of creates this loop that most of us live in. And I'm oversimplifying here, and Adam, I am so sorry, but through meditation, the idea that through either like a breathing practice or a body awareness practice or a mantra practice, you can kind of essentially sink below that level and experience, ideally at some point nirvana, but you experience non-attachment and non-aversion and all of the things that kind of had you stuck up here kind of float away. He refers to it as cutting down the branches, but in my experience, you sort of sink below that, and a lot of the stuff that you're sort of getting all looped up about or anxious about, a lot of us illustrators, a lot of people who are freelancers, we all deal with anxiety. I don't care who you are. Like if you're trying to make it like this, you're dealing with anxiety somewhere. And this has been really, yeah. And exercise and meditation are both things that have scientifically been proven to reduce stress, to reduce anxiety. So in a very simple way, like it helps me be less of those things so that I can focus on my work. But also, there are studies, and I can link them. There are studies that show scientifically the parts of the brain that are linked to creativity, and there are certain kinds of creativity. There's certain kinds of exercises that you can do to sort of see how creative a person is. There's sort of standard science exercises like something as simple as name all the ice cream flavors you can name, and if some people might just be like chocolate, vanilla, and that's as far as they get. Some people can name a whole bunch of flavors, and some people start getting into snozberries and fluffberries and and crazy stuff. So you can see how there's a real range, and the people who there's studies that have been done where after exercise or after meditation, immediately after and 2 hours after and then 2 days after, they test people on these kinds of tests, and the people who did the exercise and the meditation routinely do better on these creative exercises. So with that in mind, I do these things every day.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, what do you do to facilitate that balance? How can you make sure that you are, I guess, balancing the work stuff which needs to be done and yet still find time to efficiently do your exercise, do your meditation? How do you juggle those two things effectively?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, I also have a 3.5-year-old son. I'm married. We own a house, so we have tenants, and so it sort of starts. I just got a reminder for my dry cleaning. It doesn't really end. I also work from home, so my wife, who I love, oftentimes will be like, "Hey, can you?" And I'm around. I don't want to make it seem like I don't want to Gwyneth Paltrow this thing. Like I don't have like such a difficult life. Like we have, we're doing really well. I want to be more like the Angelina Jolie. Like I'm great. My son is with his au pair right now. Like, and I can work all day, so we're fine.
We need to make that.
And I get to see him whenever I want.
That'll be a great snippet down the line. I want to be a lot like Angelina Jolie.
I don't want to Gwyneth Paltrow this thing.
I know. I actually know people who know her, and like I feel like I feel like she's just getting lambasted for something that's like terribly like misquoted, but she did. That's what I'm talking about. At least there's context here.
Well, let's continue.
How do I find time? So I've done a lot of research into like different kinds of fitness and kind of like what's the best for you and different kinds of meditation. Now there's some people who go and meditate 4 hours a day. Some people want to go to the gym for 4 hours a day. For my money, at least on the fitness side, everything I've read says that if you're like me and you want to basically stay fit, you're not really looking to build too much muscle, but maybe like you want to bulk up a little bit. Short, intense exercises are the way to go. Huge win for me. Also, stuff that you can do with body weights or like rubber bands. And I've got like a little door gym over here just with the Body by Jake with the rubber bands. It's and that's all I need. So I don't have commute time to the gym. When I want my 20-minute break, I got it, and it's 20 minutes. I got my little routine programmed into my phone. There's been a little bit of upfront cost here doing all the research, but I've found stuff that works. For me and for others. My friend Scott Fisher, I told him about my Muddy Colors article. He read it. He didn't tell me, but he switched to my diet plan. I should preface all this by saying exercise is all great, but if you're actually looking to like lose weight, diet is absolutely everything. Especially once you get into your like late 20s, 30s, slow down in here. It's all diet. You could work out every freaking day, but if your diet is crap, you're not going to see any changes. So he just switched the diet, no exercise, and he lost 20 pounds in like 2 months. Oh, wow. It was crazy seeing the difference in him. He looks healthier. He looks like it's hard to say if he has more energy. He's sort of got infinite. So like, what's more than infinite? But but yeah. So I basically like dialed everything. So it's like all optimized for like short amounts of time. I don't have to leave my house. Stuff I can do, literally anywhere. The exercises I do. I'm going to Ireland tomorrow for 9 days with my family. I can do it like on the floor, in the room where we're staying. I don't need weights. If I don't have weights, I can do it without weights. If at home, I've got a couple of hand weights, and that's great. But I've optimized everything so that I don't need hours a day to go get this hit of creativity.
Put a lot of thought into this for like freelance dad life 101.
Yeah. I think that
yeah.
Go ahead. It's so important. I found for myself just to have something to sort of to break you out of whatever that cycle is with working or just constantly being in your head. That I guess be it with physical exercise or meditation or something like that. I think it's super important just to kind of break that cycle and have you refreshed. I know that when I go because lately I've been on one of those like month-long periods where I haven't been to the gym. And in addition to just not feeling physically as great as I would like to, I noticed that I'm a little more anxious, I'm a little more stuck in my head, that in addition to just having the exercise, it's a great way to, I'll notice if I'm on the elliptical or I'm doing something, I start getting new ideas for projects I want to work on. So I think that there's definitely something to be said.
And that's not an accident.
Yeah.
That's not an accident at all.
You're talking about that, the psychological connection between exercise and creativity. It definitely shows up. That I'm not a psych major or anything like that, but I can see firsthand that it does sort of open up those connections to be more creative, to get inspired, and then I come home and it's like I'm ready to go now in a new and improved way.
Absolutely.
So now that we kind of get how you balance that physical aspect of things with all of your work, I want to get back to all these projects you've got going on, all of these artworks, and your long-term children's book that's in the works and just drawn and drafted and everything. How do you manage your short-term goals with your long-term goals? And just kind of, it can be frustrating when you've got so many things happening at one time. Some are going to happen faster, some are going to take some time. and the anxiety and stress and impatience that occurs around that?
Years of practice and years of my wife telling me to quit things. There's no like no philosophy that I really subscribe to. I read the book Getting Things Done, which I really liked, but if you want to actually do the GTD, for short, if you really want to do that, you've got to buy like all these notebooks and have all these lists, and I was like, it's like getting to be too much. That's not how my brain works. There's another guy who wrote a book, and you can get it as an ebook or a PDF for like $2 on Amazon, called Zen to Done. And basically it distills all of Getting Things Done down to about 30 pages and stuff that you can basically do out of your Gmail and Gcal. So I essentially have a process of managing communication and ideas and everything, so that when I have them, they go into a bucket, and when they need to bubble up, they bubble up. For example, I use a script on my Gmail. Now there's places that do this. I think there's an app called Mailbox and some other things that you can use where you can basically take an email. So for example, I get an email. If it requires a yes or no response, they get it immediately. If it's maybe a sentence, I do my best. If it's something that requires a little bit of thought and it's not on my schedule that day to have free time or whatever, I hit snooze. And it'll bring it back that evening, which arguably I have more free time in the evening. That's hit or miss on that. But so I have this thing where I can basically say, I want to think about this on Saturday, or I want to think about this next Tuesday, or whatever. So I can sort of push things off, and that way I don't get this kind of like brain clog you get when you look at this inbox that's just full of messages that you haven't dealt with and kind of all need dealing with, but it sort of categorizes them in your calendar. We can't actually all deal with all of our email all of the time, especially as a freelancer when you're trying to deal with the school that you're working with and the business that you're starting, and also your clients for the illustrator. It's too much. So I try to sort of calendar things, calendar time in for like when I deal with stuff. Now, obviously, sometimes I just get inspired and I kind of dig in on something, but I don't do that if I'm supposed to be doing something else. Which, so my calendar looks very full because I'm actually scheduling blocks of time to work on various projects.
That's the toughest thing that I've found personally, because I do use Google Calendar exclusively. Oh my God, I would be a disaster without it. But I do find those periods where, for whatever reason, I just get really inspired to work on a given project, and it's not necessarily on that calendar. There are other things to do, so I find myself in that kind of conflicted stage where I know that I need to do these things, but how important are they? Because I want to take advantage of the inspiration, and I think that's something that's tough to balance. And I think it's it's interesting to see how you personally deal with that. Kate, I know that you have your own philosophies on this. What do
calendars?
Not just that, but your own way to balance, the pressing things.
Very organized. I mean, just getting this podcast up and going, I got like emails with scripts and schedules and like a reminder and an invitation and all this stuff.
I love
Stop
it,
Mark. We're trying to be cool. We're playing it cool.
Keep it coming. This is I waited all day for an ego boost. Thank you.
So
I got more.
The next.
I can.
Oh my God, she'll
Sprinkle
just.
that throughout the whole episode. I'll explode by the end. I swear.
She will. So the next thing that I wanted to ask is, what, if anything, does stop you from doing the things you need to do for making that progress? Is there anything that consistently comes up that gets in your way, like a roadblock?
I mean, aside from like life,
and marriage and children and all that.
Yeah, just like my schedule sometimes just gets in the way. Yeah, I mean, sometimes just stuff comes up and that's life, and I've gotten a lot better at just letting that be. It's sort of the meditative practice of just sort of being with that. Like, okay, so the pipes broke, and now you have to go deal with that. And well, you just tell your client that it's going to be late. Like, that's what's happening right now, man. Like, and there's nothing I can do about it. You do your best, and sometimes you screwed up, and you make your apologies when you did screw up and suffer the consequences, if any. oftentimes a really like authentic apology can get you out of those scrapes.
Absolutely.
Because people
Fortunately,
can
I've only
really,
been in a couple.
people get
Yeah.
sincerity and they get authenticity. And
And
when
they
it's not there,
You know, when things come up in life and you can offer a sincere apology, recognize your commitment, recognize your inability to fulfill on that commitment, and create a contingency plan, you know, with a really authentic apology and an acknowledgement of how you're not, you know, what position that leaves them in and of their circumstance. Like, people are usually more than willing to just be like, I understand, your pipe is broken. I'm going to be with that too, and just give you.
Well, you also need to be responsible for the fact, like, if this is a recurring thing, that you want to be responsible. You want to take ownership for those things you did wrong, but you also need to know that if this is something you consistently do, you know, there's going to be an impact on the way that people hear you and, you know, receive your communication. Another thing that I want to ask you, a little more specific.
Well, let me
go
just
ahead.
interrupt you. Just say, I do. I'm speaking of authenticity. I want to be clear here. Like, sometimes that stuff comes up, but that's a pretty pat answer. I think the truth is the thing that gets in my way most of the time, and it's not like this like crazy like, you know, life altering stopping thing. I am sorry, but nobody else is home. I'm going to very quickly let whoever that is
Go for it.
in the
Caitlin
house.
and I will talk amongst ourselves. Just go ahead and mute yourself.
Not a problem.
So one of the things that now that we are filling here, one of the things that I do want to focus on, you know, Mark was talking previously about the specific things like anxiety, the things that specifically come up for creative types, and you know, this is an area that we've touched upon a bunch of times in the past. Things like, because we are these creative types, because we put so much stock in our product, that we have this tendency to relate ourselves, you know, and define ourselves by the work. So, Mark, now that you're back, I can see.
Wait. I'm glad we just had this conversation. I am so very sorry, but someone who I need to talk to is here. He's here early. I'm going to tell him. I'm going to run. I just need to let him in. And tell him to wait, and then I'll come back, and maybe you can edit this part out or whatever.
No, we're powering through it.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I'll be right back.
No, not a problem. Go take care of it.
Thanks, Mark.
You know, this is a perfect example of unforeseen events. So the best thing that you can do, it's an amazing opportunity. Is, you know, one of the best things is Mark was just talking about your ability to be with a situation instead of being like, oh my God, Mark, that jerk has to get up and answer the door. That, you know, here's the situation we're dealing with, and what can we do instead of getting frazzled by that? What are some of the actions? You know, what type of space can we put ourselves in that instead of getting sidetracked, we can move on and make the most of the opportunity? And you know, going back to what he was saying, he started giving us some answers on like things that happen, like life happens, the doorbell rings, things like that. But I think another really important thing to touch on is what are some of the things that stop us, like anxiety, like intimidation. And I know, Caitlin, you and I have touched on this briefly. I definitely want to get Mark's perspective.
I really want to add, I know a huge thing for me is that being with concept. And I have done a fair amount of meditating, and it does help. But even if you don't want to meditate, if you're not open to that, or that doesn't suit you, or you can't figure it out, or something like that, just the exercise of just being with it, of just being like, this is my situation, and that's it. This is the situation, and you can find a lot of peace and calm in that, and just recognizing,
just being with it.
Yeah.
Now, Mark, Mark is back again. Thank you for joining us, Mark. Is everything okay?
Yeah, no, there's somebody, like I said, you know, this stuff comes up. Like,
life happens, man.
I've been trying to get this handyman in for like 2 months. You know, finally he can come, and I said, you know, can you do it after 3 o'clock today?
Right.
And he said, he didn't say anything, and so now he's here, and I'm like, oh, well, he's waiting.
FYI, we're totally secretly judging you. We're never going to forgive you ever, and this is the worst episode of Artistic Awareness.
So that's the other side, is that, you know, we're, especially as creatives, you know, we're creating stuff out of nothing. You know, we're creating stuff out of our memories, our inspiration, our souls, really. Like, we're putting this work out in the world, and it's very, very personal. It's a part of ourselves.
Right.
And so is a lot of anxiety. behind that. And I sort of mentioned this before, but certainly the times when I find myself drifting over to Facebook, or, this is sort of the attachment aversion thing again. Facing, putting yourself out in the world, putting yourself out in the world like that, is it's very confronting, and it's something that is difficult to do. So there's almost like this slight aversion to even doing that. So suddenly you find yourself checking Facebook, or going out for a drink, or getting on the phone with friends, or eating is another thing that people tend to do when they start to feel anxious. So all of these things stem from just the fact that we're doing this, on our own as freelancers, the fact that we're putting this piece of ourselves out in the world, and that has stopped me in the past from moving as quickly or moving at all on certain projects. It's taken years to sort of identify that and figure it out, and be able to again, in sort of like a meditative way, to like notice it and acknowledge it and kind of like put it aside and power through anyway. It's something that I've been doing for my whole life. But now I kind of have, I'm like a nerd with this stuff. Like I read all about this stuff. So now that
Caitlin and I are very much invested in this.
We're total nerds on this. We're I think we're really nerding out and trying to hold it together.
Talking to the right audience here, but like all of this stuff, if you can find a way to sort of, if you can first of all acknowledge that it is something that you deal with, and I think probably all of us do to one degree or another. Some people have more acute cases and they need to maybe take medication for it. I certainly have stuff that, like, when I'm absolutely like bonkers, like I have all this herbal stuff that I take and put in my smoothies, and I was talking to my friend Marc Scheff, who is a trainer in San Francisco, and he runs a company called Alter Rations, and they have some great protein powders and workout drinks, and they're amazing. But I was talking to him about it, and we were joking that, like, people are like, oh, what do you eat? Oh, I eat like Whole Foods. Oh, that's hilarious. I eat science. I do. I sit with my smoothie thing in the morning. I put in some veggies, and then it's like powder, drink, squirt, like all this stuff. And Chloe's looking at me like, what the hell is in there? I'm like, no, this is for blood oxygen, and this is for blah, blah, blah. And like I've got a list of things. But yeah, so like my goal with that aspect of the work is to really just it's never going to go away. Right. I'm not looking to like. It's just never going to go away. So you find ways to manage it, and that could just be as simple as noticing that you're avoiding something and doing it anyway, or through science and herbal tinctures and all this stuff, sort of seeing how that affects things. And I'm experimenting on myself as much as anybody else. So
with all of this, like your work and your fitness, and obviously you're definitely like a personal growth fan. What's one thing you wish you could do better?
Let go.
Oh, that is like so zen.
Oh no, I mean my wife will laugh because this is the example that we keep pointing to, and I feel like I remember this now almost because it's like the sort of the example of this thing. But like, I remember like when this guy was an asshole to me on the plane like 5-6 years ago, and like thinking about it, if I like really think about it, it will like still make me angry, like what an asshole he was.
I've got so many of those. Yeah,
and it's just like that kind of stuff. Like, so we just switched from AT&T to T-Mobile, and I won't admit to like how long it actually I spent on this, but like, at some point a better man might have just like given up and sucked it up and like kept their shitty AT&T plan, which they suckered me into. They suckered me off my unlimited. I know, it was my fault. Like I should have known, and I did it, and then I went to go back.
Tight to my unlimited. Hold real tight to that unlimited.
Well, they wouldn't let me switch back, and man, it was just like I couldn't get into like my work for like a whole day and a half. Like I was just like, I'm like calling AT&T, and I'm like escalating to supervisors, and I'm like not letting go of this. We did eventually switch to T-Mobile, who has an unlimited plan that's great and cheaper than AT&T, and I like them very much. But it was like this, like, can't let go, and Chloe's like, just just it doesn't matter. Like, we can afford the plan that we have now, and I'm like, it's not the point. Like, they're screwing me, you know, and I don't like
Right.
that feeling, and I like can't let go of it in many cases. So if I could be better at one thing, it would be that I'd be much more present.
I think that's probably my biggest thing too, and not just with work, but just in life. You're talking about the guy who was a jerk on the airline. It's like, I know better, but I still can't stop myself from reacting. And I'm watching myself do this, and I'm like, dude, why are you doing this? But it's so difficult in that moment, because it's like, at that point, it's automatic. It's just response. And I think that well, the first thing, you were talking about how important it is to recognize the things that you're dealing with. And I think the biggest pitfall for artists especially is to not come to terms with the fact that we're dealing with these things. That's really the biggest thing that we're trying to do with artistic awareness, is just be like, yes, we're all dealing with these things. It's okay to be real about it, because until you put that out there, you're hopeless to do anything about it. And then even knowing those things, you can see that we're still dealing with, the problem of trying to, we're reacting, we're dealing with these things, we know better, but we can't stop ourselves. And I think that's a really important thing, is sort of training yourself to see, yes, I'm acting this way, I'm responding this way, and like you said, have the ability just to take a beat for a second, realize that you're doing that, and put it to the side, and just get back to what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Kate, what is your experience with that?
Are you fishing for a particular answer? Is there a story?
No, I'm just curious.
Or just
passing the mic
with having to put things aside, you mean?
Just what is your way of dealing with, what are some of your experiences where you just, something happens?
I am not good at it. I need some letting go help as well. Even I can see myself getting angry over something, or I can watch myself like I'm an outsider. Watch myself.
Yeah, you're like a spectator.
Or respond irrationally, or get really anxious. I can hear that little voice in my head that's just chattering along and creating all these stories. I can hear it, and I can't stop it. And I want to say that it's a huge step in the right direction. I need to give myself props for even being able to recognize that, even being able to step outside of myself and just recognize it, even though I can't take that next step to stopping it, or that next step to, So it gives me a little bit of a leg up in just recognizing how ridiculous some of my stories are, and recognizing how obscene it is, like that I can't let this go, that it happened 5 years ago, and it's baby steps. It's still something I really want to learn to work on. Because it really, there's so much that you self-generate in your stories, and that little voice in your head. If you just sit still and quiet and just listen to it, the things it comes up with are absurd. And we live our lives by that. That little voice is what tells us what we're worth, and it tells us when to be upset about something, and it makes all these narratives based on things that we just made it up. And now you're reacting on something that you just completely made up.
I think that another thing that I noticed, which is especially prevalent in artists, is we're so hard on ourselves. And Mark, just listening to you talk, that you want to be able to let go, but you're beating yourself up for not being able to. And I think that an important step to making that, to having that progress, is to just give yourself some credit. You're doing an awesome job. You're working on all these things. You've accomplished so much. Yeah, and you've got a wife, you got a child. That you're gonna deal with some of these things. But I think it's so important just to be like, okay, well, what am I actually accomplishing that I can really just take ownership of and be proud. And that way, when you do just react with your stuff, you don't have to beat yourself up. It's not that overwhelming, because you know that you're capable of the good stuff. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, I think another thing to point out is that I'm very, very careful to not be too sort of like, well, it's easy, because while we all deal with this on some level, there are people who deal with this on a very, very serious, debilitating level. Like, there's people whose anxiety or depression, and you guys, I'm sure, talk about this, are just absolutely debilitating. And for those people, God, I hope you have health insurance, or go get it, because I've had experience with this, and medications can be very helpful. Letting people take care of you can be really helpful. You know, going to someone and saying like, I like don't know how to handle this right now, and I need you to like help tell me what to do. And you know, getting yourself into therapy, or again, you know, medication, or whatever it takes to sort of, you know, get you through those times. And if it's, you know, an ongoing or chronic issue, you know, to manage it over time. It's very sad to see someone who has you know, who has huge potential just kind of go nowhere because they've got you know, anxiety, depression, borderline personality, like pick a head disease, and it's just really difficult to see that. So like, you know, I don't want to make it sound as easy as, you know, just look on the bright side. Yeah, you know, like that's really good if you can do it. It's really good if you can let someone else do it for you. And it's like tough because you don't want to ask for it, but like
that's what it is.
Sometimes, and I've totally done this where I'm like, can you please just like tell me the good stuff that I'm doing right now?
Help.
Like, I just don't see it. I just don't see it right now. I'm like buried in all this shit, and I can't figure out what the freaking point is. And like, just tell me. And you know, a little fishing goes a long way sometimes, and it can really pull you out. Like, not only does it, you know, is it like an ego boost, but you're letting somebody else know that you need them. It brings you closer to them.
It's okay to ask for help.
Vulnerability thing.
You strengthen that bond between the two of you. You know, they get to know you a little better, and you know, you get closer, and then you make out and you get married. It's great.
You know, I think that it's.
That was an excellent way to wrap that. Right. That's amazing.
It's so important because those things.
Not how it happens.
Then I have to wrap with a sweet joke I've got for you guys.
Well, there's one thing I just wanted to touch on really quick is that, you know, Mark, you're talking about some of these things that are unavoidable, but the thing that we're really hitting on with this episode and with the program is that yes, there are things that can't be avoided, but it's incumbent upon us to find some of these organic solutions. You know, Mark, you're talking about exercise, you're talking about meditation, and just reaching out. And you're putting yourself in that vulnerable position where you realize that it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to reach out for help. It's okay to take some actions and get outside of yourself, to take some of these organic solutions to, you know, to get yourself empowered, to get yourself out of your head and start taking some action. And that's really what we're about. Kate,
yeah. And let me just add, you know, just because I like giving people specifics, not just being like, you can do research.
Right.
Specifically, like things that I've found that help with anxiety that you can get at any like organic, you know, vitamin store is valerian root, and some of these things are also good for sleep. But
valerian's great for sleep.
The way that they help you sleep is they quiet down the mind. So like valerian root, kava, and believe it or not, hops. If you get a little, like I actually, my mind is like racing every single night when I go to bed. It's so hard for me to fall asleep. So I actually take a little dose of hops, like it's like a little pill, and it's like just ground up hops. Man, it helps so much. That and a little valerian root, and I'm good.
Awesome.
So,
Katie.
What do meditating and an apple peeler have in common?
I don't know. I don't have an apple peeler.
They both take you to the core.
Oh, God.
Wow, you're like my dad.
So many more. So we're going to conclude. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank God.
For a piece of your mind.
Oh, God.
On that second joke right there. I'm rolling today. Where can people keep in touch with you, hear more from you, keep up with your projects, you know, all that good stuff, see your art?
Probably the place that I'm most active right now is Instagram, and I post a mix of my art and sometimes art that I really like, and sometimes pictures of me in fun places, but rarely. And I don't pick pictures of cats. I'm not into the whole lolcat thing. So Instagram's a good place to find me. My username is Marc Scheff. You can follow me almost anywhere. Facebook, my website. It's all Marc Scheff. And our new project is drawnanddrafted.com. So if you're looking. If you're an illustrator and you're looking for resources to help you build your business with like actual specific suggestions and not just sort of like you should have a marketing plan, but like here is ways to do it. That's the kind of stuff that we're putting out over there. And again, that's just drawnanddrafted.com.
Excellent. Thank you again, Mark, for being on
Yeah.
with us today.
Thanks for having me. This has been really great to talk
absolutely.
about.
Great. So you can keep up with us. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/artistic awareness. We are on Twitter at Art Podcast. You can subscribe to us on YouTube to get these episodes delivered straight to your inbox. And if you're interested in chatting with other artists in our community, we are on facebook.com/groups/artistic awareness. And that's where you can chat with us and other people in our audience. Also, we want to hear from you guys. What do you do to find your peaceful place in the midst of all this artsy chaos? Leave your comments right below this video.
Yeah, and there's one more thing, because as we said in the beginning, this is our season finale. That was weird the way I said because, but anyway.
Do we get to wear hats for the season finale?
Check it out. I think the ship has sailed on that, unfortunately, Mark, and I'm going to go ahead and blame you for that. But getting back to the point, because this is yes. All right, you know what? Let's put it on. Let's put it on. I'm gonna put something on here. I want to be a pirate.
I feel like a princess.
Now I'm a pirate,
today.
And that's the magic of technology. Is whatever you want, you can make a reality.
You make a good pirate.
Thank you. So the last thing I wanted to say, with this being the season finale. This whole thing has gone by such a hurry, just from the conception of the idea to make it a reality, and now being 13 episodes in, we really want to thank you guys in the community for allowing us to have this conversation and keep it going. And this first season has been fantastic. We've had some really great opportunities to speak with really great and talented guests. Caitlin, I see your devil horns. Let me focus on that for a second. Oh, jeez. So I want to thank you, Mark, specifically for being on here, and we've got a lot of we've got a lot of really exciting things in store for you next season. So just let us know. Let us know in the group or in the comments section of the video. What are some things that you took away from the episode? What are some of the things that you took away from this season? If there's anything you want to see for next season, let us know. So thank you guys again. Thank you, Mark. And on behalf of Caitlin and Mark and myself, thank you guys, and we will see you next season. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you, everybody.